When we think of Cardassian starships in the Star Trek universe, we always think of the Galor-class. However, the species actually used some other designs in their appearances, primarily in the 24th century. In today's Star Trek Explained video, we dive into the starships of the Cardassian Union. Before we do, what would you name a Cardassian starship in the Star Trek universe? Comment your answers below. Okay, engage! We'll start with one of the smaller ships. This is the Hideki patrol ship, also known as the Hideki fighter. This was a multi-purpose Cardassian vessel design in service during the 24th century. Due to its versatile design, it fulfilled multiple roles, including those of an attack ship, a transport, and a patrol vessel. The Hideki class comes in at around 98 meters long. This is with a beam of 60.14 meters and a height of 12.43 meters. Now, the size of this vessel does seem to be inconsistent across Star Trek episodes, which is sometimes the case. It is generally accepted that the design of the Hideki class is around 98 meters long. In terms of the armament, the Hideki class is fitted with 4 more Cardassian spiral wave disruptors. There is an additional medium aft disruptor fitted, along with other weapons depending on the loadout. The design has been observed to reach warp 9.5. It seems the design could be modified to carry Galor-class phase banks if required. Looking at the history of the Hideki class, it looks to be a newish design for the Cardassian Union. We say this as in 2370, Bajoran Kira was only able to visually identify the design as a Cardassian ship. This class of vessels later identified by the computer as a Hideki class Cardassian patrol ship, and pose a certain risk to one of Starfleet's runabouts. The defensive systems used a photo lock-on prior to opening fire. During the Dominion War, Hideki-class vessels were armed with powerful weapons and able to take part in fleet battles. Allied fleet crews would refer to them as Cardassian attack ships. Typically, the Hideki-class would focus on smaller Federation vessels, such as the attack fighters, rather than the larger designs. This design was seen in many battles across the Dominion War, notably in the Second Battle of Deep Space Nine and Operation Return. Turning to the behind the scenes of the design, the Hideki class first appeared in the Deep Space Nine episode Profit and Loss. The script of the episode simply described it as a small Cardassian ship. It would later appear in the Tribunal episode, and this was the only reference to the design's class name. During the Dominion War storyline of Deep Space Nine, we see Hideki class ships in the Cardassian Dominion Alliance fleet. In the episode Sacrifice of Angels, it is referred to as Hideki class Dominion fighter. Jim Martin would design the Hideki class vessel. Martin also worked on starship designs, such as the Danube-class runabout, which he co-designed with Rick Sternbach, and later the Jem'Hadar attack ship. According to the Star Trek Encyclopedia, 4th edition, the name Hideki was chosen in honor of a Japanese physicist, Yoaka Hideki, who first postulated the existence of a subatomic pion in 1935. Oh, we also see the Hideki class in Star Trek Lower Decks. However, this is part of a holodeck simulation by Ensign Beckett Mariner. Okay, let's talk about the main Cardassian military starship, the Galor-class. If you enjoy our Star Trek videos, then please consider supporting us on Patreon. You can even get one of these new Trek Central pins. They simply just look fantastic. I mean, look at that. Patreon helps creators like us to keep making these types of videos you are watching now. Please consider hitting the link below this video to check out our Patreon page. Any questions? Drop them below this video. Introduced sometime in the 24th century, the Galor-class cruiser was commonly referred to as the warship of the Cardassian military, not to be confused with the Obsidian Order. On occasion, Starfleet would refer to this class of ship as a destroyer, even sometimes classing it as a medium cruiser. However, that was during the Dominion War. Coming in at 371.88 meters long, the Galor-class typically carried a crew of 300 to 600 personnel. The Galor-class's overall appearance was somewhat shaped like an Egyptian ankh symbol. Think along the lines of a half-moon structure atop the primary hull. Interestingly, the symbol of the Cardassian Union was the same similar anchor shape, which is probably why the Galor was designed like this. A symbol of a Cardassian's government in the form of a starship. The half-moon style structure sat atop the primary hull, which also made up the starship's port and starboard blades. This also contained the warp nacelles. On top of this, there was an additional structure with a bridge located inside. The deflector array of the Galor-class was a main part of the design, located on the bow of the starship. In terms of propulsion, the Galor-class has been observed as being able to reach warp 9.6. Tactical system-wise, the Galor-class sported numerous phaser arrays. Typically, Cardassian phaser fire was originally pink, but later improvers made it yellow. While using phasers, it has been noted that some Galor-class starships would make use of spiral wave disruptors. There would also be one large aft disruptor. While an impressive armament, the Starship was still considered inferior to the likes of the Federation's Galaxy-class. However, both their defense systems of shields and hull strength combined with their weapons made them very effective against Miranda-class starships and Klingon birds of prey. The shield generators of the Galor-class were located in the aft section, notably in the tail where the prong was attached. At one point in time, it seems the Cardassians might have experimented with photon or plasma torpedoes. In the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Ensign Ro, 2 Type 3 Galor-class warships fired a weapon that resembled something along the lines of a photon or plasma torpedo. No description of the weapon was ever given. It has also never been seen again since. Therefore, we theorize that this is like an experimental fit for these ships, and that not every Galor-class carries the same weapons seen here. Galor-class warships have been described as quick and powerful, yet some adversaries note that their targeting systems could be easily fooled, allowing for a quick strike. Overall, Cardassian technology was still somewhat behind the Federation. A prime example of this occurred in 2367. Galor-class warships, and presumably other ships in their fleet, lacked the ability to read Federation Starship transponder codes. The Federation did possess this technology. Thankfully for the Cardassians, they were granted this ability by Captain Jean-Luc Picard, due to a crisis at the time with the Nebula-class USS Phoenix. In terms of interior layouts, the Galor-class featured your typical Cardassian layout. The captain's chair, or rather Gol's chair, was raised in a position so that the commanding officer could oversee everyone underneath them. It's unclear when the Galor-class starships were officially commissioned and brought into service by the Cardassian military. We know they were in operation by 2367. However, the Federation Cardassian Wars, otherwise known as the Cardassian Border Conflict, took place between 2347 and 2366. It is likely that the Galor-class starships were somewhat active towards the end of this conflict, but we do not know that for certain. A Galor-class starship engaged the Galaxy-class USS Enterprise D, which was under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard in 2367. This was during a situation on the Cardassian border, involving the Nebula-class USS Phoenix. Captain Benjamin Maxwell had gone rogue, and was attacking Cardassian outposts and starships. The commander of the Galor-class, Gul, informs Picard that his species has been attacked by a Federation starship. It's at this point that Picard makes clear how much more powerful the Enterprise D, a Galaxy-class, is compared to the Galor-class.
The alternative is for us to continue firing into one another. And in such a contest, you would be at a disadvantage.
It's unclear if Gul sent Galor-class warships to intercept the USS Phoenix, as they were made light work of by the Federation starship. Given that Masset reported that the warship had a crew complement of 600, it's safe to assume that it could have been a Galor-class ship that was destroyed by the rogue Nebula-class. Eventually, this situation was diffused, with Captain Maxwell standing down and being confined to quarters aboard the Enterprise. Maxwell did believe that the Cardassians were secretly rearming and preparing for another conflict. While this could not be proved at the time, Jean-Luc Picard did leave Gul with a warning.
Take this message to your leaders, Gul. We'll be watching.
In 2368, the USS Enterprise D had another run-in with multiple Galor-class warships. This was part of a covert alliance that Vice Admiral Kennelly entered into with the Cardassians to eliminate a Bajoran terrorist cell. Ultimately, it turned out that the Cardassians had been manipulating the Admiral. Picard was able to lure out the Cardassians and the conspiracy was exposed. Jean-Luc later speculated that the Admiral would probably be court-martialed for his illegal actions. The Galor-class warships would make a few other appearances in the lead-up to 2369. Galor-class cruisers were hovering around the area after the Cardassians retreated from Bajor, and when the Federation took command of the formerly Cardassian space station above Bajor, known as Terok Nor, now officially renamed Deep Space Nine. Following the Enterprise D delivering a new station commander, Benjamin Sisko, to the area and departing, a Galor-class warship under the command of Gul Dukat entered the system. Dukat's Galor-class remained near Deep Space Nine, telling the new commander of Deep Space Nine that he would offer help if they needed it, but instead would investigate the Bajoran wormhole, which would be discovered soon after. With the outbreak of the Dominion War, the Cardassians allied themselves with the Dominion. As such, the Galor-class warship became the main starship used in fleets and engagements throughout the war. While not being as technologically advanced as Federation Galaxy-class ships, or even the Dominion's own fleet, the Galor-class still fought well in a good deal of engagements with other starships. Notably, it was effective against lighter Federation ships such as the Miranda-class. In 2374, the Monarch shipyards were where a number of Galor-class vessels were being constructed. As a primary shipyard during the Dominion War, this location became a large target for the Alpha Quadrant alliance of the Federation, Klingons, and eventually Romulans. In 2375, a large Klingon fleet attempted to attack and destroy the shipyards, but failed. Eventually, these shipyards were destroyed due to solar plasma ejection from the Monarch's sun, caused by Klingons, General Martok, and Lieutenant Commander Worf on board the bird of prey IKS Rotaran. As the war began to fail for the Dominion and the Cardassian side, the Cardassians switched sides and fought back against the Dominion forces of the Vorta, Changelings, Jem'Hadar, and Breen. Dozens of Galor-class warships suddenly joined the Federation fleet in attacking other Dominion ships. As such, the Federation and allied ships were able to break the Dominion lines and continue onwards to Cardassia Prime. After the Dominion War had ended, with Cardassia Prime in rubble and billions of Cardassians dead, what became of the Galor-class starship is unknown. Whether the Cardassian Union would be disarmed or not allowed to have warships is unknown, as the only Cardassian vessels seen in use after the Dominion War are Hideki-class starships, and by 2380, the Cardassian Union would have an upgraded version of those much more smaller, multi-purpose starships. Given the heavy presence of the Cardassians in Deep Space Nine, it's no wonder that the Galor-class became such a recognizable ship in the Star Trek universe. But how did the ship come to be designed? Well, it was first introduced in Star Trek The Next Generation. While making its debut in The Wounded, it was first named in the episode Ensign Rowe. With the introduction of the Cardassians in The Next Generation, a new starship was needed. This task fell to senior illustrator Rick Sternbach. To design what would become the iconic Galor-class, Sternbach produced a series of rough sketches. Eventually, producers would select one of the sketches, and Sternbach would move to create it to a more detailed drawing. Usually, this would then be approved. However, the Galor-class was different. Sternbach previously revealed that the design underwent a major revolution. Originally, it was very bland and somewhat pedestrian. Upon comparing the original design to the USS Enterprise D, the producers told Sternbach to give him something weird. Sternbach went back to the drawing board and ended up making a mental connection between the Cardassians and the Egyptian pharaohs. This is how the Galor-class ends up looking like the Ankh symbol. Ultimately, the Galor-class is a departure from the usual starship style in Star Trek. Model makers Ed Moriarty and Tom Hudden would go on to create the studio model for the Galor-class at their model shop. This was called science fiction and model making. The pair had just 3 weeks to build a model for the production team. The Galor-class was one of the most complex model constructions the team had ever worked on. The basic frame of the ship was made of aluminium and features complex lighting circuits that illuminate the impulse engines, windows, and navigational deflectors. The final model was 37 inches long, and according to both Moriarty and Hudson, it featured their initials in the detailing. This model would appear in 7 episodes of The Next Generation, 2 episodes of Star Trek Voyager, and multiple episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Now, for the last 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine, the Galor-class was a CG model. The physical model was sent to Foundation Imaging and was used as a reference by Brandon McDougall, who built the CG model. The real model of the Galor-class was sold at the 40 Years of Star Trek for Collection auction for $24,000 in 2006, which, in my opinion, is a very nice way to end its journey, at least for now. Though I kinda want it on my shelf. Let's talk about the Keldon-class starship. Now, if you take one look at this and think it's a Galor-class that we've just been talking about, I would not blame you. To cut a long story short, the Keldon-class line of Cardassian starships is basically the Galor-class with bits bolted on. Before we look to shame the Cardassian engineers for this, the Federation is just as guilty of doing this with their starship designs. So if you can't beat them, join them, as the saying goes. The main difference between the Galor-class and the Keldon-class was the additions to the aft end of the vessel design and the main body. For example, there were additional fins at the aft end of the hull, with these large-style attachments located on the upper middle sections. Currently, the purpose of these alterations remains unclear. Perhaps they house a Romulan cloaking device or other enhanced defences. The Keldon-class warship came in a length of 371.88 meters, a beam of 192.23 meters, and a height of 70.13 meters. The vessel has been observed to reach warp 9.6. In terms of the onboard armament, 8 or more spiral wave disruptors were installed, with one large aft disruptor wave cannon, and likely other weapons, such as torpedoes, were also on board. Historically, it seems the Keldon-class was developed in secret by the Obsidian Order in the Orion system. In 2371, the Order, which was the primary intelligence agency of the Cardassian Union, secretly collaborated with the Romulan Star Empire's intelligence agency, the Tal Shiar, to construct the Keldon-class. Due to this unique and rare collaboration, the Keldon-class was fitted with cloaking devices, had its engines enhanced, and had its weaponry fully upgraded. The secrets of the Obsidian Order's construction site in the Orion system was almost exposed. This is when Starfleet's USS Defiant was hijacked from Deep Space Nine by Maquis. It made top speed to the Orion system, desperate to reveal what was going on. Keldon-class ships were deployed from the area and intercepted the Defiant, with one taking heavy damage due to phaser fire and quantum torpedoes. Even after being upgraded, they were still vulnerable. Sometime after this incident, the Obsidian Order and Tal Shiar would reveal the Keldon-class warships in their abortive attack on the Founder's homeworld. This attack was developed by ex-Obsidian Order head Enabran Tain. It featured a combined fleet of 20 Cardassian and Romulan warships. This was designed as a preemptive strike on the Founder's homeworld, the rulers of the Dominion. The Battle of Imario Nebula became the first major armed engagement between the Alpha Quadrant and Dominion forces. However, it's the only large-scale conflict to take place in the Gamma Quadrant. The Tal Shiar supported the efforts of 5D Derelict-class warbirds, while Tain's Obsidian Order made up the rest of the fleet with 15 Keldon-class warships. The joint fleet arrived at the homeworld of the Dominion's founders and proceeded to commence an orbital bombardment.
So much for the Dominion.
30% of the planet's crust was destroyed in the fleet's opening volley. However, while there was damage to the planet, there was no change to the life sign readings. Elim Garak, who was on board, discovered that the founders had already left the planet, leaving behind a transponder to fake lifeform readings. Within moments, 150 Jem'Hadar fighters emerged from the nebula, cutting off the joint fleet. Due to the phased Polaran weaponry of the Jem'Hadar bug fighters, this made light work of the Cardassian and Romulan defences, with the fleet taking heavy damage. Realising the fleet was doomed and the mission was a failure, Garak escaped the bridge but left behind Tain, who refused to accept defeat. As Garak was rescuing Odo, they discovered the commander of the Romulan fleet, Colonel Lovok, was actually a changeling. The pair escaped on the Starfleet runabout, USS Mekong. Hopelessly outgunned and with no hope of retreat, what remained of the Cardassian Romulan fleet fought to its destruction. Meanwhile, the USS Defiant rescued the USS Mekong and fought its way out of a battle zone, managing to escape back to Deep Space Nine. In Star Trek canon, it seems the Keldon-class warships were all destroyed during this engagement. When Cardassia joined the Dominion and the war properly kicked off, their main warship was the Galor-class. Now, developing the design of the Keldon-class for Star Trek Deep Space Nine came down to Tony Menninger. Of course, the Keldon studio model was a modification of the Galor-class, originally designed by Rick Sternbach and built by Ed Moriarty. Interestingly, the Keldon-class is one of few Star Trek ship designs to appear in Star Wars. The outline of the Keldon-class was interestingly displayed on a monitor in the animated Star Wars The Clone Wars series, specifically the episode Rising Malevolence in 2008. How that came to be the episode, we don't actually know. So that's a complete overview of the starships of the Cardassian Union. They've certainly got some interesting designs, but which one is your favourite? Let us know in the comments below. While you're there, what species in Star Trek should we take a look at next? Comment below and we'll make it so. If you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. A big thank you to everyone who has supported us on Patreon. Your support allows us to continue making these Galaxy-class videos. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.